Welcome to the Bourbon Van. I'm Phil.
I'm Julie, and we are at Frey Ranch Distillery.
We are in Fallon, Nevada, where we actually thought it was going to all be desert, and it's not that. In fact, there's a lot more than desert, specifically whiskey. We're here today to learn a little bit more about the bourbons, the ryes, the wheat whiskey, the oat whiskey, and everything else that they have to offer here at Frey Ranch Distillery.
My name is Colby Frey. I call myself a whiskey farmer. Ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to be a farmer. And so my family's actually been farming in Nevada since 1854. Nevada didn't even become a state until 1864, 10 years later. And so we've been continually farming in Nevada since 10 years before Nevada was even considered a state. And really the importance of that is we know how to grow the grains in our specific climate and our soil with our irrigation techniques. You know, anywhere you go in the world, agriculture is completely different. And so by having that 170 years of knowledge that's been passed on from generation to generation, we can grow better grains. And with anything, with better inputs, you end up with better outputs. And so by growing our own grains, we can grow really high quality and have better inputs. And we feel like that really shows in the final product in our whiskeys. All of the wheat, rye, barley, and corn that's in all of our whiskeys is grown right here on the farm. We grow it in a way that encourages quality, not quantity. And so we sacrifice quantity all the times in the fields. And grain is a commodity. It kind of goes up and down like the stock market, like the Chicago Board of Trade. You know, the farmer on the other side, and we would too, usually does whatever it takes to get the biggest quantity because there's rarely any quality incentives in the grain market. It's just there's a price per bushel and that's what it is. And so by growing it ourselves, we can really ensure that we're getting the best quality. In the bottom of every one of our bottles, it says, "Be good to the land and the land will be good to you." That's really important for us. And so we feel like we're one of the most sustainable distilleries in the country or possibly the world because of really the location of where we are and just who we are. We call it common sense sustainability. We don't do it because it's a trendy thing to do, but because it's important to us. And so, for example, all the byproducts, the spent grain goes to the dairy next door. The dairy makes manure. Manure is the best fertilizer there is. We bring it back on the fields, which means we don't have to haul in manure from around the world. And most fertilizer comes from Russia, South America, South Africa, all over the world. And if you think about how much energy that takes to bring it to us, you know, whereas we're just getting manure, which has every available nutrient that a plant might need, you know, right next door, which is really important to us. The liquids go into our irrigation system and they're very acidic and our ground's a little bit on the alkaline side. And so by putting this acidic liquid on our soil, it helps us balance the pH so that we can grow a better crop. I actually had a guy stop by the distillery that wanted to put in a distillery in Truckee, California. And they said just to dump this liquid down the storm drain, they'd have to put 20 parts water to every 1 part of this liquid to kind of water it down to dump down the drain. We go through 4,000 gallons a day. That means we'd have to dump 80,000 gallons of water a day just to dump it down the drain, whereas we're actually able to benefit from it by being right here on the farm. A lot of distilleries bring in rye, especially rye. Usually corn and wheat and other grains are local, but rye a lot of times comes from Germany, from Canada, from around the world. And you think about how much energy it takes to bring that to the distillery. We're literally growing it right here at the distillery, surrounding the distillery. It's all dirt roads to the silos where we store the grain and everything right here. All of our cooling water comes from a reservoir that's right here on the farm, and we just pump it from the reservoir through the stills, through the fermenters and all the equipment to cool the fermenters and stills. And then it goes back to the reservoir where Mother Nature naturally cools that liquid, that water back down naturally. So we don't have to have a big antifreeze or glycol chiller and use a tremendous amount of electricity there. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons why we feel like we're really efficient and sustainable. And that's really important to us because we want to pass the farm on to our kids in really good condition. And to do that, we have to take really good care of our resources. We got a call from our cooperage this year, and they said we could just order as many barrels as we ordered last year. We couldn't up our order any if we wanted to, which luckily that's the same amount we wanted this year because last year we actually overproduced last year. So every year we increase our production a little bit, but last year we pretty much went up to max production because we knew that this year we want to actually add on to the distillery. And so we upped our production last year and this year will be the same production. So we kind of lucked out And I really think that it'll even out the barrel shortage and everything in the future. So it's something that we look at, but I hope it doesn't affect us like it could. Yeah, so most of our barrels right now are going to breweries. Some of them gone to wineries. A lot of local people take them for planters or anything like that. But they still have some value, you know, as once filled bourbon barrels. There's quite a few wines that are aged in them, a lot of beer at breweries. And so we're really fortunate. It's kind of fun. There's been 5 or 6 really good beers and a few really good wines that are made from them, yeah. We're really fortunate. We work with a really good producer out of, they're from Mexico City. And we got really close with a lot of the owners and the people at the company and everything. And so there was a time when I was having a hard time getting glass, and I called them and I said, hey, I'm going to be out of business if you don't get me glass. They said, we're going to do whatever we can to get you in glass. And they got it to me. They were great, and they've been great ever since. And so we've been really fortunate, because I think that they could sell a lot more glass than they can produce right now, but they've really taken really good care of us. It was a big collaboration, but mostly my wife kind of spearheaded the whole project. We hired a company to help us like the bottle shape, and then a company to help us with the label, like the design of the label itself. But her inspiration was for the top was like, what would we just find around the ranch? Like, we have like bolts all over the place. What would we just kind of shove on the top of a bottle, you know, or make into a topper? Like, we have to reuse everything here on the ranch. We do our own welding, our own electrical, all that kind of stuff. So she wanted it to look like a bolt, even though a bolt is 6-sided and this is 8, but it's, you know, it's the idea, right? Then the label itself, it's supposed to match the yellow from the corn. So the corn on the outside, there's a little bit of white there on the tip, but the yellow from the corn, this is what it looks like when it's grown in the field. Also the corn when it's harvested is that kind of beautiful yellow. And then it wraps all the way around. And that's supposed to be like a belt buckle that my grandpa gave to my dad, that my dad gave to me. So it really looked like this. It didn't have that bottom part like the rye has, but it was just the belt buckle was pretty plain. But anyway, so that kind of matches that. And then the last thing, which most people miss, but we're really proud of, is on the bottom it says, be good to the land and the land will be good to you. And as farmers, it's kind of what we have to do. Like, if we don't take really good care of our land, our environment, our climate, our natural resources, everything, then we don't have a future as farmers. And so my goal in life is to pass the farm on to my kids in as good or better condition than I received it in. And to do that, we have to take really good care of everything. So it's the foundation of the farm, but it's also kind of the foundation of our bottle. Yeah, so every year we've increased our production a little bit. So right now, technically, we're only distributed in Nevada and California. Like, we've sent a little bit to Oregon, a few cases to Georgia, but we have an online retailer that can ship to 36 different states, but that's just to the end consumer. But every year we increased our production, and the idea behind that is we wanted to do a good job at where we're at and then move on. And so we started in Nevada in December of 2019. Then we launched in Southern Nevada in February of 2020. Our whole goal at that point was to be on-premise, and so we were really hoping to be in lots of bars and restaurants in Las Vegas. I think in 1 month, in March of 2020, or February of 2020, we got in over 360 locations in Southern Nevada. We were so happy, and then COVID hit, like basically stopped everything. So we've refocused from on-premise to off-premise, and liquor stores and grocery stores and things like that. And we're really fortunate because we pretty much picked up right where we left off and met our sales goals. And we're really fortunate to have a lot of support from the whole bourbon community. Everybody's so helpful and so nice. It's a lot different than like a brand that might just buy, and there's nothing wrong with buying MGP or anywhere else. But I mean, I almost feel like at a disadvantage because they buy it, they bottle it, and they have all the time to go out and market themselves. But me as a farmer, we're trying to grow the grains ourselves. We're making the whiskey here and aging it, doing everything, and then also having to go out and sell it, which is really fun because it's kind of taken 2 of my passions, whiskey and agriculture and farming, and combining them. And it's kind of cool because I really want to be a farmer, but that can be really kind of lonely and desolate, and you don't get out much. And so the whiskey allows me to get out and meet fun people like you guys, and then the farm lets me go get back to my roots too, So we did a lot of experimenting with that because we were worried if it would taste different and what it would do. But this way is so much easier. It's not quite as pretty, but it's so much easier. The infrastructure is so much less. You can reuse the pallets. You can grab 4 at a time or 8 at a time, really, with the forklift and bring them right down without having to roll them out and everything. And so we did a lot of studies. we couldn't really tell the difference flavor-wise between ones that stood up and laid down. And we really asked a lot of people in Kentucky and other places, and a lot of people kind of told us that they're really going towards palletized barrel warehouses, kind of the newer ones. The older ones are all the big rick houses, you know, and so we really couldn't tell the difference on our own, so we thought we were going to go with this. We also have like you said, the other barrel warehouse, which is kind of the pretty one that we did at first, and then realized like how much work it was and how much easier this is. So we actually got our distilling license in 2006. It was a federal experimental license in 2006, but there's no state laws in Nevada until 2013. So from 2006 till 2013, we played around with different grain varieties, different irrigation techniques, different fertilizer management, all the things in the field. Then we brought that to the distillery and we played around with different mash bills, different yeast varieties, you know, different barrel types. And so we kind of played around with palletized and laying them down and everything else. And that's when we really realized like we could not tell a difference after a couple years in the flavor profiles of the ones laying down and the ones standing up. So from the beginning, we said we will not release anything in less than 4 years. And we were lucky because we had the farm to kind of support us in the meantime. And so we were hustling. I mean, we were doing like, we have a lot of tractors. Like there's like 30 tractors out there. You know, we were going for every farmer we could find and doing work for them to make a little bit of money to buy a few more barrels. And that really allowed us to keep going and really wait till it was ready. Then we realized that the whole bottle, the custom bottle process takes a lot longer. So it was really kind of an average of 5 years when we finally released our first bourbon, and we really kind of liked it at that age too, so we kind of rolled with that. But in my opinion, bourbon, it has to be put in, one of the requirements is it has to be put in a new barrel, and new barrels impart a lot of flavor. And so that's why I really believe like bourbons, when they get up into the high teens and 20s and really high age statements, they're just too oaky, and you're almost masking the flavor from the bourbon itself, the grain. And our goal is to showcase the grains. And so I don't foresee us having any like 15 or 20-year-old whiskeys, but our oldest right now is about 8. We saved a little bit back, and we'll see where it is, but I really think it's going to peak. And here in Nevada, it gets down to 0 degrees in the coldest part of the winter. And this last year, it was 108 during the hottest part of the summer for a few weeks. And that really helps it age. It expands during those hot summers. It contracts during the cold winters in the barrels. And so we really feel like our whiskey at 2 or 3 years old tasted a lot older than 2 or 3 years old. And so I really think it might peak at 8 or 10 years old. And in my opinion, might start to go down after that. I don't know. We haven't quite gotten there yet. So that's what's kind of fun, is we're figuring it out as we go. But there's a saying in the wine industry that we carry on to the distillery that you got to like what you make, because you might end up drinking it all yourself. So when we like it, we'll release it, and that's what we'll continue to do. Texas at 10 years old might be gross because it's so much accelerated that aging, and so that's why I kind of think ours, at 8 or 10 might be the best at 6. I don't know yet. Like, we're kind of tasting it as we go, you know. 80% of our production is bourbon, 15% is rye, and then 5% is kind of specialty stuff. And so I always tell everybody it's 5% of our production, but 90% of the fun, because that's how we really get to express ourselves and show off the different grains and everything else. And so we have 100% corn, 100% wheat, 100% rye, which we actually bottle, 100% barley, malted barley. We have 100% unmalted barley. We have 100% smoked, like a single malt, like Scotch style whiskey. We have a smoked oat and rye. I don't know if I said it already, but we have 100% oat. Then we have 100% malted corn, because we malt on site, so we malted corn. We have what we call a quad malt, where it's wheat, rye, barley, and corn in the same mash bill as our bourbon, but all 4 grains are malted, and it's really a totally different flavor. Man, we have all kinds of other ones, like 5-grain bourbons, where we added oats as a 5th grain. We have 4-grain bourbons where we replaced the wheat with oats, one where we replaced the rye with oats. Then we have a 3-grain bourbon with corn, barley, and oats, and just kind of fun things that are different, but they're super small quantities. And so traditionally we'll put those in 375 milliliter bottles and just sell them here at the tasting room only. And so that's kind of something you get. Usually if you come out to the tasting room, there's something special that you can only get here. Whiskey's always been my favorite, but like, anybody can make a vodka, anybody can make a gin or whatever, but like, there's not a lot of distilleries that'll age at 5 years and, you know, grow the grains and everything else. We've really felt like that's something that Besides, I like whiskey 1,000 times better than everything else, but it's just a better category, I think.
So there you have it. Frey Ranch, a whiskey oasis.
And from wherever we are,
To wherever you are. Cheers.
cheers.